The confirmed number of coronavirus cases in Los Angeles County comes to 1,248,128. The confirmed number of deaths comes to 24,455. Here in Torrance, the total number of confirmed cases is 7,505, with total confirmed deaths at 220. Welcome to COVID-19 Today. I'm Bella Shaw. It's Thursday, June 24th. Almost all COVID-19 deaths in the United States now are of those who were not vaccinated. Only about 0.1% of those who are fully vaccinated have been reported to still get infected and end up in hospitals. And just 0.8% of them made up the total number of COVID-19 deaths in May. The director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, says the vaccine is so effective that, quote, nearly every death, especially among adults due to COVID-19, is at this point entirely preventable. She also calls such deaths particularly tragic. Public health officials across the country and here in LA County have been pleading with residents to get vaccinated if they haven't already, as the highly contagious Delta variant becomes a growing concern and experts predict it will become the dominant strain soon. This month, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration began requiring healthcare employers, including hospitals and nursing homes, to provide time off so employees can get their shots. And vaccination incentives continue on local, state, and federal levels to motivate more Americans to get protected. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration wants Americans to know about a rare risk when getting a COVID-19 vaccine. The FDA plans to add a warning to its fact sheets for Pfizer and Moderna's vaccines about the slight possibility of developing inflammatory heart conditions. A CDC safety panel has determined there is a likely association between these vaccination shots, which both use mRNA technology, and cases of myocarditis and pericarditis in vaccine recipients. Myocarditis is marked by inflammation of the heart muscle, and pericarditis involves inflammation of the membrane surrounding the heart. Now, these cases are extremely rare, about 1,200 as of June 11th, among the more than 150 million people who have gotten the two vaccines. More cases have been reported with Pfizer, which may be due to the fact that it is authorized for those 12 and up, while Moderna is only authorized for adults. Health officials noticed these cases particularly in those 30 years and younger. The FDA wanted to hear from the CDC committee before finalizing the language on the warning, but it will likely note that there may be a risk of developing myocarditis or pericarditis within a week after receiving a second dose of either the Pfizer or Moderna shots. Most cases appear to resolve themselves, but long-term effects are unclear at this time. Public health officials don't want this to deter anyone's willingness to get vaccinated. They note that myocarditis and pericarditis are much more common if you actually get COVID-19, and the risks to the heart from a coronavirus infection can be more severe as well. The number of COVID-19 cases among people experiencing homelessness in Los Angeles County have declined significantly and continues to stay low. Weekly cases peaked back in December at 630. Compare that to just 60 new cases this week. To date, 7,296 people experiencing homelessness in LA County tested positive for COVID-19, and 213 of them have passed away. Of those who passed away, 97 were sheltered, 70 were not, and the remaining statuses were unknown. There are 967 providers currently administering vaccinations to people experiencing homelessness. They've given a total of 35,296 COVID-19 vaccine doses across the county. The LA County Board of Supervisors took action this week to help small businesses that need help paying their rent. They unanimously voted in support of a motion that sets a $10 million fund to compensate their landlords. The motion was brought forward by Supervisors Holly Mitchell and Hilda Solis. It directs several county officials to report back in 45 days with the estimated number of commercial COVID-19 rental debt owed by small business tenants. The motion also calls County Council to report back with language options for an ordinance the county can adopt that aligns with existing protections under the eviction moratorium, which the supervisors extended through the end of September. Landlords won't be able to collect a commercial rental debt that occurred between March of 2020 through the end of the moratorium. County officials say more than 93% of businesses in LA have 20 employees or less, and many of them are still struggling. A recent report by the LA Economic Development Corporation showed that small business support last year was flawed because larger companies got priority with banks due to their established lending relationships. As a result, many businesses now owe hundreds of thousands of dollars in rent debt, with companies and underrepresented communities disproportionately impacted. In January, Small Business Majority released data showing 45% of Black, 52% of Latino, and 55% of Asian and Pacific Islander entrepreneurs were struggling to pay rent or mortgages over the following 6 months. The board noted that this motion specifically targets relief for the most vulnerable and marginalized small businesses who have been excluded and are underserved by existing programs. The nationwide eviction ban has been extended to July 31st. It was set to expire at the end of this month. CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky says this is intended to be the final extension of the moratorium. The Biden administration made the decision on Wednesday in an effort to help tenants who are struggling to pay rent during the pandemic. This week, dozens of Congress members wrote to President Biden and Dr. Walensky asking for an unspecified extension of the moratorium in order to allow enough time for tenants to receive the nearly $47 billion in emergency rental assistance in the American Rescue Plan. They argued that ending the assistance too abruptly would disproportionately hurt some of the same minority groups that were hit hard by the coronavirus. Meanwhile, landlords who opposed the moratorium argued that the focus should be on speeding up the distribution of rental assistance. Groups representing them went as far as to ask the Supreme Court earlier this month to end the ban, saying it's led to landlords losing more than $13 billion every month. Unemployment numbers in America are continuing to go down. The Labor Department says jobless claims fell by 7,000 from the previous week to a total of 411,000. Weekly claims have been decreasing since January, when about 900,000 claims were made. Economists are optimistic that growth will accelerate in the April to June quarter, when it could top 10% at an annual rate. As you know, California officially reopened last week on June 15th, and the economy is picking back up as more people are eating out, shopping, and traveling. A growing problem now is a lack of employees, as employers are scrambling to hire. U.S. employers posted a record 9.3 million job openings in April, up 12% since March. But they were only able to hire just 6.1 million people, suggesting that positions are opening faster than companies can fill them. Hotels and restaurants are seeing the biggest increase in job openings, as many of these businesses are able to reopen after being forced to close or curb hours during the pandemic. Also adding to the hiring headache is the number of Americans quitting their jobs. That number rose 11% to almost 4 million in April, the highest figure in records going back to the year 2000. Some states are starting to cut off pandemic-related unemployment aid programs in response to business complaints that the assistance is making it harder for them to find workers. Starting this month, 26 states will end the extra $300 weekly federal unemployment payment, and 22 of those states will also cut off all jobless assistance to the self-employed, gig workers, and those who haven't been working for more than 6 months. The extra $300 ends nationwide on September 6th. A new study estimates that life expectancy in the U.S. dropped by almost 2 years between 2018 and 2020, largely due to COVID-19, and minority groups were the most affected. In 2018, the average life expectancy in the country was near 79 years. That went down to just under 77 years by the end of 2020. The information comes from a new study published in the British Medical Journal. A researcher says they haven't seen a decrease like this since World War II and calls it horrific. The study is based on the 600,000 plus COVID-related deaths in the U.S. and others who have or are experiencing disruptions in healthcare and chronic disease management. It also looked at those with behavioral health crises and those struggling with depression or addiction disorders. Also sobering is the death rate for Black Americans, which was twice as high as white Americans, and the disparity is expected to continue. Researchers estimated that African Americans saw their life expectancy go down by 3.3 years, while Hispanic Americans saw theirs drop by 3.9 years. Life expectancy in the U.S. had already been on a downward trend in the years leading up to the pandemic. Researchers stay optimistic, however, and say they believe that life expectancy will rebound. They note that the U.S. has some of the best hospitals and some of the greatest scientists, but they also point out that the country has big gaps to fill when it comes to getting more people the proper medical care they need, especially when they need it most. Frontier Airlines canceled its new COVID recovery fee just one day after it was widely publicized. In May, the budget airline started charging its passengers $1.59 per person per one-way flight to cover COVID-19 safety costs. The fee was hard to find when travelers were booking their tickets. Frontier spokesperson Zach Kramer said the charge was never considered a fee and was included in the total promoted fare. He added that it was meant to provide transparency and describe what portion of the fare was going toward COVID-related business recovery. Kramer says the airline will discontinue the practice of breaking out this category within its overall promoted fares to avoid further misinterpretation. Frontier's website still lists the COVID recovery charge under the taxes and fees category of travel policies. It says this charge offsets added costs to Frontier due to implementing COVID-19 related measures such as increased sanitation and cleaning on board the aircraft and in the airport, shields at the ticket counters and gate areas, and personal protective equipment for employees. Earlier in the pandemic, Frontier tried adding a fee to block the middle seat on its flights, but changed its mind after receiving public criticism. Governor Gavin Newsom will face a recall election. He becomes the second sitting governor in California to face a special election. State officials confirmed the news on Wednesday, saying the recall will proceed after just 43 people withdrew their signatures from petitions during the 30-day window required by state law. Now the state's Department of Finance will begin estimating the costs of the recall, including costs of holding it as a special election or as part of the next regularly scheduled election. The findings will be submitted to the governor, the lieutenant governor, the secretary of state, and the chairperson of the Joint Legislative Budget Committee by August 5th. The recall election cost is estimated at around $215.2 million. Voters will be asked two questions on the ballot. First, do they want to vote yes or no on recalling Newsom? And second, which candidate would they like to see replacing Newsom? There's expected to be a long list of names to choose from. Newsom was elected in 2018 with almost 62% of the vote. By law, he is not permitted to add his name to the ballot as an option. No date has been set yet for the recall election. The Torrance Public Library wants to brighten your summer with a free gardening class. If you're free tomorrow, June 25th, the group meets via Zoom at 10:30 a.m. to learn about colorful container gardening. Garden consultant Yvonne Savio will help attendees to guarantee success for you and your plants. This program is generously funded by the Friends of the Torrance Public Library. To join the presentation, send an email to sbueller@torranceca.gov. Well, as we wrap up this week, be sure to tune in to Weekends in Torrance beginning Friday right here on City Cable. Due to the extended council meeting this week, Weekends in Torrance will air at 4 p.m. beginning Friday. This weekend, we introduce you to the Torrance Welcome Center, which celebrated its official grand opening and ribbon-cutting ceremony with lots of dignitaries. Find out what makes this new addition to the Del Amo Fashion Center so special to the city of Torrance. Then Father's Day continues on Weekends in Torrance with a truly heartwarming sports story of a father and son who are also known as a coach and one of his football players. Leslie Robbins sat down with his North High School duo to learn about their strong relationship on and off the field. Plus, one of Torrance's beloved stories, Olympus Board Shop, or stores rather, Olympus Board Shop, is still going strong even through the COVID-19 pandemic While paddleboard season is now upon us, our Leslie Robbins visited the store during snowboard season to see how the shop adjusted to the COVID crisis. Weekends in Torrance kicks off tomorrow at 4 p.m. You can find us on Spectrum Cable Channel 3, Frontier Files Channel 31, streaming on our website as well as on YouTube. Well, before we go, at the end of each program, we like to share feel-good stories from our community. Pictures, images, and videos that remind us of how resilient our community is and how Torrance truly cares. The Torrance Fire Department recently helped celebrate a very special birthday. This is Robert Bob Lytle, and he turned 100 years old last Thursday. Bob is a World War II Navy veteran, and his family invited the Torrance Fire Department to help make his big day extra special. Captain Stefan Vieira shared these photos with us, saying Bob had a blast getting chauffeured around on Engine 92. They also enjoyed cake and coffee and listened to Bob's stories from when he was in the Navy. Captain Vieira says they usually get calls when something bad happens, but this was a good day and a memorable visit to be in the presence of a World War II veteran and a 100-year-old gentleman. The firefighters presented Bob with a Torrance Fire Department baseball cap and thanked his family and about 40 guests for their hospitality before returning back to service. What a heartwarming story. Thank you, Captain Vieira, so much for sharing these priceless moments with us and for serving our community in such an important way. Now, if you have a great story, an upcoming event, a photo or video you'd like to share, email us at covid19today@torranceca.gov. We'd love to hear from you. Well, that's our update for COVID-19 today. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday to bring you the latest. Be safe, stay healthy, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.